What is going on here? Keep that noise down and clean up this mess immediately.
In the heart of Ajegunle, where the air was a thick soup of frying akara, generator smoke, and hope, stood house number 14, Olayinka Street, a sprawling, rusty-roofed face-me-I-face-you compound ruled by the iron fist of Madam Chidiogo. Madam Chidiogo was not just a landlady, she was a curator of control. Her compound, once vibrant with laughter, now moved to the stiff rhythm of her decrees. She was a tall, imposing woman with a permanent squint, as if perpetually scanning for bylaw infringements. Her rules were legendary, typed on fading A4 sheets and pasted on every doorpost. Rule 7. Children's laughter permitted only between 4 p.m. and 4:30 p.m. Excessive merriment disturbs the spiritual equilibrium. Rule 12. Cooking of ogiri or stockfish banned. The odors are agents of rebellion. Rule 19. All tenants must greet her with "Good morning, landlady of life" before 12 p.m. Amendment to Rule 19, added after an incident, said greeting must not be uttered while chewing. Her favorite pastime was the evening tribunal, where she'd sit on her cracked leather stool in the center of the compound, listening for offenses. Mr. Bayo, a meek accountant, was fined for whistling a hymn off-key. Sister Nkechi, a petty trader, was penalized because her child's soccer ball had gazed disrespectfully at Madam's window. The tenants suffered in silent resentment. This woman, her head day for amendment, they'd whisper. She behaves like someone who swallowed a law book and a bottle of pepper. Into this tense ecosystem came Emeka, the new tenant in room 4. He was a sculpture of calm in the compound storm. A mechanic with a small workshop outside Ajegunle, his hands were permanently etched with grease, but his eyes held a deep, unsettling stillness. He moved in with just a toolbox, a few boxes, and a framed photo of a smiling woman and a little girl, which he placed by his bedside. He listened politely as Madam Chidiogo delivered her introductory manifesto. "Here, young man, we worship order. I am the architect of that order. You will comply." Emeka simply nodded. "I understand, ma." His quiet defiance began subtly. When fined for returning her greeting at 12:01 p.m., he paid without a word but left the coins in a neat, cold pile on her stool. When she banned him from receiving his noisy friends, 2 fellow mechanics, he simply met them at the gate, their laughter a soft, defiant rumble just beyond her domain. Madam Chidiogo felt a new kind of irritation. This one wasn't afraid, he was unimpressed. Her power, she realized, fed on fear, and Emeka offered none. The war escalated over water. Madame decreed that fetching water from the single compound tap was now restricted to 2 buckets per household per day. "Lagos is dry," she declared. "We must be prudent." It was a rule too far. Families with children struggled. One sweltering afternoon, as Sister Nkechi's youngest cried from thirst after the buckets were emptied, Emeka acted. He quietly connected a long hose to the tap and filled every bucket, pot and basin in the compound. Madam Chidiogo exploded. She stormed to his door, her voice a screech that brought out every tenant. You anarchist, you have breached the Supreme Amendment. You are evicted. Pack and leave by tomorrow." Emeka stood in his doorway, his quiet eyes now glowing like hot coals. He didn't shout. His voice was low, a blade wrapped in velvet. "Madam Chidiogo," he said, and the compound held its breath. No one had used her full name in years. "You speak of rules. What is the rule for a woman who sold her own humanity to pay for this house? What is the amendment for a heart so sour it poisons the air we breathe?" He took a step forward. The tenant gasped. "You fine Mr. Bayo for whistling, but did you know he whistles to forget the shame of being unemployed? You ban Sister Nkechi's ogiri, but that smell is the only memory of her village she can afford.
You rule us with paper, but you have never once seen us. Then he delivered the blow. You lost a son once, didn't you, Chibuke? Ran away at 15. Too many rules, too much coldness. Madam Chidiogo staggered as if struck. The color drained from her face. That was a secret buried a decade deep, a private tragedy she had weaponized into more bitterness. How do you know that? Her voice was a broken whisper. Emeka's stand facade cracked, revealing a canyon of pain. He walked back into his room and returned with the framed photo. He showed it to her, to everyone. My wife, Nelma. My daughter, Chidera. They were in a bus coming to visit me last year. A tanker lost control on the Berger Bridge. The people who pulled them from the wreckage, they weren't following rules. They were following compassion, something you have amended out of existence. Tears, hot and shameful, streamed down Madam Chidiogo's face. The compound was silent, save for the distant cry of a hawker. Her tyranny stood exposed, not by aggression, but by a grief deeper than her own. Madam Chidiogo retreated into her flat for 3 days. The compound existed in a strange limbo. The rules were still on the doors, but they felt like relics. People fetched water freely. Children played. The smell of ogiri wafted from Sister Nkechi's pot. On the 4th evening, her door creaked open. The tenants watched, wary. She emerged, looking smaller, older. She wasn't carrying her stool. Instead, she held a large pot. She walked slowly to the center of the compound, to the spot where her tribunal used to sit. She placed the pot down. It was a rich, aromatic pepper soup with chunks of fish and goat meat. Her voice, when she spoke, was rough with disuse. There is no rule, she began, then cleared her throat. There is no rule that says a foolish old woman cannot say she is sorry. She looked at Emeka, who stood by his door. You saw my pain when I hid it. You named my loss, and I was too busy amending life to live it. She turned to the others. Mr. Bayo, your whistling is not a nuisance. It is a gift. Sister Nkechi, your ogiri, it smells like home. She served the soup herself, starting with Emeka, then to every tenant. It was an awkward, tender ceremony. The pepper soup was delicious, a taste of shared humanity.